What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. And this is a continuation, a Q&A of a previous video that I had done. I wanted to jump back in. You guys seem to love that video, so I wanted to make sure that I answered as many more questions as I possibly can. So we're going to get right into it. If you're new here, make sure to like, subscribe, leave a comment. It helps the channel grow, and I really appreciate it. That's how I can continue to make these videos and get all of this information out to as many people like yourself as I possibly can to help everyone that's looking to start an Airbnb business know exactly how to do that. So let's get right into it. I'm going to just scroll through here and pick up where I left off last. Let's jump into the first one. Okay, what's the difference between arbitrage and co-hosting? Okay, great question. So Airbnb rental arbitrage, or rent to rent, is basically when you go to a landlord and you rent a property on a 12-month, 18-month, or longer term basis, and you get them to allow you to sublease the property on platforms such as Airbnb, VRBO, Booking.com, and once you pay your expenses like your rent and utilities, you collect the difference. Okay, so let's say your rent was $3,000 for that property, your utilities and expenses, let's call it another $1,000. So you're in $4,000 a month. And then if you're able to generate $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 a month from that property because you've done the right research and you get a winning property, it's very, very likely that you can at least generate $2,000 a month in positive cash flow for yourself. That, in a nutshell, is Airbnb arbitrage. So that's one. Co-listing is when you actually partner with someone that already owns or is already renting a property, and this is actually zero risk to you, and their property is listed, let's say on Zillow. You contact them because their property is just sitting there, and you're going to do all the management for them. So they're going to keep renting the property, they're going to keep owning the property, but what you're going to do is manage all of the guests that come in on a short-term basis or even a mid-term basis, and manage the cleanings, manage the tenants, any maintenance, and that is going to be essentially what you're doing and collecting a percentage. So you're not the one that rents it, you don't have the liability of rent, you don't have the liability of having a mortgage on the property. So very, very good way for you to start out if you're newer into Airbnb and want to generate cash flow. Now with that strategy, you're typically going to have several properties for you to really see that larger cash flow coming in. But again, if you have pretty much no money to start, all you need is your LLC and to know how to approach that and get into the market through co-listing and build your cash flow up and eventually purchase the property. So those are the two differences. In one of them, in arbitrage, you're renting and then re-subleasing out. And the other, co-listing, you're taking over the property from a management side and collecting a fee, whatever it generates in that month. So for example, let's say you approach a landlord, you get the co-listing agreement with them, you go list the property on all the platforms, you're going to manage all the cleanings, all of the guests, and let's say they generate $10,000 in that 1 month, which, believe it or not, is very possible, especially when you pick the right type of properties. And that's a very big win for the owner of the property because their property was just sitting there collecting dust. So you're providing them with the income through these platforms, and you collect your 20%, let's say, anywhere from 15 to 30%. You collect your 20%, so 20% of $10,000, that's in your pocket. So that's $2,000 from one property into your pocket. All right. Let's go. How much time do I need to dedicate to starting my Airbnb business? I already have a job. I love it. Most people including myself, that start out on Airbnb, and pretty much every single one of my students already has a job, 9 to 5, or already has a business, or both, right? And that's the beautiful thing about this business. You have to put in the work, you do have to dedicate the time, but if you can put in a few hours a week, you can have your Airbnb business up and running before you know it, as long as you put in the work and the hours on doing your market research, doing your property research, setting up all the automation. When you do it the correct way, using all the tools and the softwares that save you a bunch of time, the AI that's available to automate your business, especially also if you have a virtual assistant once you get many properties. It's 100% doable. And in fact, I don't think I've worked with a single person that didn't already have some sort of job or income. Because of course you do need that to start out and invest in Airbnb, right? Unless you're doing co-hosting, which is, like I mentioned, virtually $0 up front, aside from your LLC. All right. So let's keep on going. What else do we have? What about regulations? Does it make sense to start with all of the rules that I hear are changing? Okay, so regulation can be good and bad. Now, let me explain. There are some cities that have banned Airbnb, or they have really, really tight regulation. So, of course, if it's banned, you can't do Airbnb there. Maybe you're better off doing midterm rentals, which is 30-day plus rentals, or going to a different city. So, you've got to remember Airbnb is extremely flexible. And what I recommend to everyone that I work with and what I do, I follow the data. So I'm not married to any one location, here or there. And you can, by the way, you can do it nationally, you can do it internationally, you could do Airbnbs in any country. You want to find the places that are Airbnb or short-term rental friendly. And that comes from, again, back to square one, your market research. Okay? Now, what do I mean by regulation can be good? The reason regulation can be good is it causes a bit of a barrier to entry. It depends on the regulation. But if you can get your foot in the door in a market and be one of the handful of landlords or short-term rental operators that are in that market, well, guess what? A lot of people get afraid by regulation. So that all comes with the research. And if you have that regulation, that actually scares a lot of amateurs away and allows you to position yourself in particular markets to pretty much claim the entire pie because you know how to play within those regulations. Now, I'm not saying all of those towns and cities with regulations are good. If it's too tight, and you just stay away from those. But what I'm saying is when you find areas that are regulated, not all of the regulation is bad. So you really have to do your research. You can use Google or ChatGPT, look up all the laws before you start your business. And even if they did implement regulation for your short-term rentals, if you've done your research, you can always do a hybrid model and do midterm rentals as well. I'll have an entirely different training and video for midterm rentals. You want to strike the balance if that were to happen as a backup option for you. But again, if you've done your research, you don't even have to worry about that. Okay? Next question. Very good questions, guys. Okay, what if someone damages my property? Okay, this is what terrified me when I was starting out, right? What happens if someone just comes and trashes your property? Well, there's a few things that I do to prevent that. Number one, let's talk about preventing that. And then number two, let's talk about what if it happens. Both are things that you can manage. So how do you prevent it from happening? Number one, you screen the tenants. Okay, so what do I mean by that? There are ways that you can set up your listings where you don't instantly accept every person under the sun that wants to stay at your property, especially if you have nicer properties. Okay, now you don't necessarily have to do that because apparently from an algorithm perspective, if you do instant bookings, they prioritize you. But if you have a really nice property charging top dollar and there's high demand for your listing, you don't even need to worry about that. Okay, so you want to vet the tenants and make sure that they're quality tenants. Now, worst case scenario, and by the way, there's many other ways that you can mitigate that and prevent parties from happening by having minimum night stays and all sorts of things like that that I share with everybody that I work with. But let's say you do have someone that damages your property. There's something called air cover through Airbnb where there's up to $1 million of coverage. So if someone were to damage it and you can prove it, then you're in good shape. Airbnb will take care of that, work with the guests, and get you reimbursed for the damages of the property. Okay, another thing you can do is go out and also get your own insurance so that God forbid if something were to happen, you would be covered and you don't have to bear the burden of that cost. So two very simple things that you can do. But again, there's things you can do to mitigate whether that even happens. And again, if it did happen, you have these insurances through the platforms that will cover those damages. So I would not worry about that. You are covered. Okay. Very good questions here. Okay, what else? What else? Oh, wow, it's getting pretty dark here. So I'll wrap up with one more question. How long after I set up my property should I expect until I start getting bookings? Okay, so great question. And I'll start off, I think I answered this in my previous Q&A, but I'll just give you the answer again. With my very first property, I earned $12,500 in my very first month. My first booking, I think it came in like the first 1 to 2 days of me even going live. And then a second booking within the next few days and a third booking all within that week. And it's because I had the right property in the right place. I did a bunch of research. I had a mentor that helped me actually find the property. And yeah, I made about $12,500 in the very first month. First booking was $3,400, $1,600 for the second, and $7,200 for the third. I remember this vividly because it was completely, I didn't know that that could happen, to be honest with you. So it was it built my confidence in the business. And from there on, I never looked back, and the rest is history. So if you do this correctly, most people and everyone I've worked with sees their first bookings in the first 24 to 48 hours. Right when you go live, you've got the right type of photography, you got the right kind of property, you got a property where there's a lot of demand, you did your research and you're well positioned. Within the first 1, 2, 3 days max, you're already booked. You're getting bookings, okay? So you don't have to worry about when am I gonna get booked. I know it's a little bit concerning when you're new, and I know I felt that, and I was like, is this gonna happen for me too? And boom, right when I went live, started getting booked, and like I said, the rest is history. So everything is in the preparation, in your market research, and knowing exactly how to do all of the steps required for you to secure the right property, A to Z, setting everything up. And from that point forward, you won't have to worry about getting bookings. That first booking feeling is amazing. And I can't wait until all of you get to experience that as long as you put in the work. You know, you can watch my free courses, you can look at other courses online. So make sure you get help, okay? Whether that's from me or from somebody else that has a proven track record, make sure you have a mentor, or at least really do your research thoroughly. And that way you're gonna avoid money and mistakes, saving a bunch of time. And that's exactly why I got a mentor, okay? And it saved me a ton of money. And thank God it's because of the success that I've been able to build. I credit to my mentor opening that door for me. And then I just built upon that. And that was a few years ago. So for those of you that are serious about starting your Airbnb business, you can click the link in the description. It'll be somewhere down there. And you can apply to see if you qualify to work with me. I work one-on-one with a handful of people every single month. So if that's a right fit, I'll be reaching out to you once you apply. And for anyone else looking just for the standard, how do I get started? Click the link somewhere in the description. I also have a completely free course that you can watch on how to start your business from A to Z. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Leave a comment. Again, it helps out the channel. And until the next one, be great.